Indiana Jones and the Dial of Disney, where Indy faces his greatest challenge yet. The power of fallopian tubes.
How did you end up like this?
Resourceful, daring, beautiful, self-sufficient!
Look, I'm gonna need a second opinion for some of those, because this is supposed to be Indiana Jones 5, not 3.
Beautiful, self-sufficient!
And I mean, this is Phoebe Waller-Bridge, somebody who has the prestige of having worked on the script for the last James Bond movie, which should really set you up for the level of talent on display here.
I love you too.
I know.
In fact, The Wrap thinks that Phoebe Waller-Bridge is the go-to option for bringing smart female power to big franchises lately.
I love you.
I know.
A probably controversial opinion when you've got the BBC, of all places, coming out and going, I'm not sure how many fans want to see Indiana Jones as a broken, helpless old man who cowers in the corner while his patronising goddaughter takes the lead. But that's what we're given, and it's all as bleak as it sounds. But you don't just have to take their words for it, we can see it in the trailers, like where she's embarrassed to even know him.
Who is this man?
I'm her godfather.
Related.
Or my personal favourite, at Cannes, where it kinda looks like her co-star is trying to push her down the stairs. And the less said about why she's gone in Little Mermaid cosplay, the better. But no, Phoebe Waller-Bridge is here to be Indiana Jones's foil, to help guide him along through the path of the movie. Indiana Jones has faced many traps across his movies, but Helena Shaw will be the greatest test of his patience.
What are you doing here?
Rescuing you!
Because the indie movies seem to have gone a bit off the rails, the last movie had aliens in it, and this has time travel. They find a mechanism which was made by an ancient Greek mathematician, Archimedes, who I hear will actually be part of Jacob Pinkett Smith's next documentary, even played by Will Smith himself. But this means that the series now has the power to identify fissures in time and thus make time travel possible. Now obviously I don't know the plot for the movie, but what this could mean is we can actually go back to previous movies and change the events of what happens. Just think of the possibilities. No longer will Indiana Jones have to be chased by a giant boulder. Instead, he can face Hollywood's greatest nemesis, capitalism.
You stole it.
Then you stole it.
And then I stole it. It's called capitalism.
There's even rumours going around that the movie has a go at Indy for stealing from indigenous people. But honestly, it's okay, Disney. I didn't need a line in your movie, just specially to protect me. But hey, you know how this thing goes. The movie's not out for a while, but they did show it at Cannes, so we have the professional critics' opinions, and boy, do they love it. Almost as much as the writer of the previous movie that goes, yeah, actually, that was a mistake, wasn't it? In retrospect, you're probably right. But we don't need retrospect for the Dial of Disney. At 52%, it's been fluctuating dramatically as the reviews roll in, with its current 52% being one of the high numbers. Sure, it's mid, but isn't that expected? Won't most movies be mid? It's like, okay, I could give you that argument. If it didn't have a record-breaking budget, costing nearly $300 million, which would make it the highest in Lucasfilm's history, even more than any of the Star Wars movies, and means that it needs to make $800 to $1 billion profit before you start to move into profitability. And remember, companies don't spend months and years and hundreds of millions of dollars to make a small profit. You want to double up, triple up, make as much money as possible. Breaking even is a failure. And yet this is Harrison Ford's last Indiana Jones movie, the end of an era. And what's the response from the critics? Well, it received a muted response inside the theatre. In fact, audience members could be heard whispering out of boredom in French. And honestly, I feel sorry for them. They're already in France. And then you make them watch this tripe. You probably ruin the whole week. But maybe, despite the trailers, despite the reviews, despite every clip we've ever seen, maybe there might be something good about it. Maybe it is in fact Phoebe Waller-Bridge carrying this thing on her back. At least The Wrap thinks so. The first time the Cannes audience broke into spontaneous applause, it didn't come until late in the film, but it was in a response to something she did. And as it doesn't say what, I can only assume she was eating or something and thought it would be rude to talk with a mouthful. And all of that leads to a rather predictable outcome from the critics, even the ones that liked it. They go, well, MacGuffins is just something that people chase for the story. But surprisingly, this affects the story and leads to its jaw-dropping climax. What's that? Indiana Jones is getting on a bit, but we still want to milk as much as we can out of this franchise. We've introduced a brand new female character out of nowhere who's smarter, more intelligent, and far better than Indiana Jones could ever have possibly have been, and that's why she's correcting him and teaching him everything. What could Hollywood possibly be up to? Oh right, we're introducing new characters who are strangely similar to old characters, and it has the air of a film which is passing the torch, or whip, to the next generation. And hey, you only have to go on TikTok for 5 minutes to work out maybe that generation should just stay over there. And although this is a film which is passing the torch, everything is smaller and cheaper than it was in the original trilogy. Indy was up against the military in 1936, well now, he's up against one scientist and his silent, interchangeable henchman. It's just not such a big deal. Everything is smaller and cheaper than the original trilogy. Highest budget Lucasfilm movie in history. Where did all that money go again? Did it go on the de-aging by any chance? That would be the same de-aging which everybody loves. Attention Hollywood, de-aging isn't working, so please stop using it. The technology is jarring and changes how viewers react to the film because they get distracted by the uncanny valley effects as the actors lack the subtle nuances and authenticity that is required to create human expressions. Although I do have to say, most of that applies to the script writing as well. It lacks the subtle nuances and authenticity to make it feel like it was written by a human. Look, I know they're trying to ban it, but most shows feel like they're written by an AI anyway, so really, who cares? Although perhaps this could be an explanation for why so much entertainment is dark to the point where you can barely see it. I mean, we've seen The Little Mermaid. You can't even see her swimming about. And it's the same with Indiana Jones in the de-aging scene, where it's shrouded in darkness, which is the only reason that the effects in the scene even work. And this was entirely Hollywood's choice. They didn't have to time travel. They didn't have to go back to a point where they need to de-age him. Plenty of people would have been happy with Harrison Ford as he is. I mean, yes, he is 80. But you've only got to listen to this interviewer to realise the guy still got it.
Look, I think you're still very hot. We were stunned to see you take your shirt off in the second scene. You've still got it. I mean, how do you keep fit?
And you're like, yeah, you know, she's probably just being kind, but it goes a bit beyond that when things got so weird so quickly.
And can you ride a horse?
I think we were 5 seconds away from going, I've got a horse you can ride if you want, and he knew it.
Let me tell you, yeah, I can ride a horse, if they let me.
And when I do these videos, I try and pick out the most entertaining parts, find the most entertaining clips. So it's interesting then when all of those are what surround the movie, rather than anything actually about the movie itself. Because even the reviews, they come down to things like, it often fizzles as much as it lulls, and that's rating it fresh. Even the good reviews are going, yeah, it's quite boring most of the time. But there are some good bits. You know, it's got an antagonist, he exists. Or the Irish Times review. It counts as sort of a compliment that it plays just like another episode. We've rated it as fresh because it's a bit of a compliment that it kind of feels like the others a bit. Is that the best you can do? The highest of praise? Is that going to get me to go to the cinema and give them my money? It's fine fan fiction. I think when those are the best compliments from the people that liked your movie, you're in trouble. Oh, you know, it's fan fiction, or it's a bit of a compliment that it kind of feels like the others. Because the ones that didn't like it are essentially, it couldn't step up to the ones that came before. The best thing IGN can say is, there's a familiar brown fedora on screen. And needs are being met here, but they aren't storytelling based, just about meeting the bottom line. Which if it's got to make $800 million to $1 billion, I wouldn't be so sure about that one, mate. Nobody with a brain in their heads will compare The Dial of Destiny to the first 3 movies. That's actually quite savage against his fellow colleagues. The plot is hokum of the cheesiest hue. There's a focus on uninteresting puzzles that become tedious. We shan't spoil what happens next, but if you find it preposterous, remember that the film ended in Ark of the Covenant revealing its power. We sometimes forget that later films exist in the same universe. There would be that handing over the whip clue right there, I think. Setting themselves up a bit of a get out of jail free card, so if Phoebe Waller-Bridge gets fed up of destroying Tomb Raider over on Amazon, she can always come back and start swinging around in ancient tombs of her own. And it's very interesting to see the language which is repeated over several reviews, because often you think, okay, that's actually come from talking points of the directors, or maybe it was mentioned in a presentation and it's led to lots of critics repeating the same kind of thoughts and language. So even if it's not planned, it's a nice coincidence. But when it comes to bad reviews, nobody's been giving talking points there. So why then? Are people constantly referring to it as fan fiction? Like a tie-in video game or a branded theme park ride. It's just content that you tick off as having seen it in every other film already. And look, maybe that works in some places. It's definitely something Picard Season 3 did. I've heard a lot of people say that's exactly what the Mario movie is as well. The thing is, nostalgia isn't the I win button everyone thinks it is. It does actually require something else in order to get people to like it. And I think it's a very fine line between success and cataclysmic failure. If people are calling it fanfiction, gives the impression that it doesn't actually feel like Indiana Jones at all. It's getting back to that lack of authenticity angle which was mentioned elsewhere. Rather than feeling like the original IP coming out for one last hurrah into the sunset, instead fanfiction implies somebody else playing homage to it. It's like, yeah, you gave it a good try, but it's not the same. Maybe that's why the feeling just isn't as exhilarating as you may have hoped for. Something that definitely won't be helped if everything feels small and cheaper than they did before. And the jokes, the zest, the exuberance just aren't there. Something that wisecracking Phoebe Waller-Bridge was meant to bring, and clearly it didn't land. So instead of a joyous send-off for our beloved hero, we get a depressing reminder of how much livelier his past adventures were. Considering that the screenplay is credited to 4 writers, couldn't they have at least have thought of something cool for Indy to do? That's from the BBC! There are definitely arguments that you can make that professional critics want access. They want to get early access to the studios, be invited to things like the Cannes Film Festival. But for whatever reason, when it comes to this movie, that went straight out of the window. The BBC gave it 2 stars and an entire article just full of insults. I haven't seen a review that disgusted since the Irish Times were talking about the Harfoots. Now, there are some people that claim to like it, like Collider. This is a thrilling final ride. Presumably, the Irish Times would classify them as somebody without a brain in their head. But even they say it's uneven and weak in story, and do warn that the third act is going to be polarizing about whether this makes the movie better or worse, as the film goes totally off the rails. This is something else which is across all of the reviews. Everyone goes, well, there's like 2/3 here, but the last bit, that gets weird. And look, when there's this many professional critics going, this isn't good, and the other ones are warning people, this is really going to be controversial and you may not like it, they mean no one will like it. We're just trying to soften the blow before it inevitably happens. And there is a problem with that, in that this movie doesn't release until the 30th of June. So you came out at Cannes, got a 5-minute muted standing ovation, went through a big palaver with Harrison Ford getting a Lifetime Achievement Award as he stepped down from one of the most well-known movie franchises. They thought they had this in the bag. The PR is perfect for us. And yet even the reviews that like it are going, well, this is going to be controversial. And you do all of that with over a month before it releases, and you've got to make $1 billion. If they release this film early, hoping that the hype would build, they'd get rave reviews and everyone would be talking about it, built up into a huge crescendo, and they made tons of money. I don't think that's going to happen. I don't think that mixed reviews are enough to carry hype through for 6 weeks. One review even calls it Indiana Jones and the Dial of Disaster. It feels like a cross between a Doctor Who episode retooled by the writers of the Magic School Bus. The theme of time is taken too literally, and while more charitable reviewers may see a heroically stupid and audacious swerve to be applauded, it's hard not to curse the squandered build-up and bemoan the fact the line, "I've learned it's not what you believe in, but how hard you believe it," wasn't handled with more care. It really does seem like there's 2 groups. You've got the, it's kind of okay, the action was decent enough for me to like it, but the plot was crap and the ending was oof. And then there's the other group, which despise it. And call me cynical, but I can't help but look at those 2 groups as honest and people trying to be as honest as they can, but just can't bring themselves to say anything nasty about an actual massive piece of entertainment. I can't say that, sir. I don't want to get fired. And in an interesting part of this review, he says the swan song is truly ruined by a 4-way screenplay that clearly couldn't figure out how to say goodbye properly. At least, not ridiculously. And given what's happening at the moment with the writer's strike, I can't help thinking that the swan song is truly ruined by a 4-way screenplay really hits home, because what are the WGA striking for again? Oh yeah, forced minimums in writer's room, so you can never have movies or TV shows from one person's vision. So you always need to have that 4-way screenplay, gotta get those extra writers in those rooms just so everyone's got a job they don't need. And here you have someone going, that is what ruins the ending, because there's too many writers, too many people trying to add their 2 pence in, rather than just it being one person's vision and one person's movie. Nothing will ruin cohesiveness than somebody else going in and going, I think you should change that bit to what I like, because all the evidence points exactly to that happening. The Telegraph called it a shabby counterfeit of priceless treasure. Again, we come back to that fan fiction angle, don't we? It just doesn't seem authentic. It doesn't feel like the original trilogy. It feels like a shabby counterfeit. Oh look, Harrison Ford is cranky and ill-tempered. But Roller Bridge, she's superb. She's witty, sharp-tongued, and cynical. The perfect replacement if you want your heroes to be insufferable. And even though they like all that, when you get to the ending, they say it makes the finale of the Crystal Skull feel subtle, and that had aliens in it. And then ask, does it work? Well, sort of. It depends if you're willing to go with it. That's a no then. Does the ending work for you? Well, it depends how low your standards are. Do you like getting kicked in the face? Well, have I got the movie for you? And for me, that's what it comes down to. There's too many things in common between the reviews. Yeah, you've got the ones that just slate it, but even the complimentary ones agree with the ones slating it. And I just can't take people seriously when you go, well, it's just too entertaining to dismiss after you've read the others. And I think their only hope to break even on this thing will actually come down to the nostalgia value, which we've already seen work for Picard Season 3 and Mario, and the reviews have said that in between the action scenes for the first 2/3 of the movie, nostalgia is exactly what you're going to get. And maybe that's where the true marketing for this movie lands, because it's not in the reviews, but maybe it's in the fact that, well, the old movies are coming back to Disney Plus and Paramount. Maybe people will hear about this movie, go and watch the old ones and think, you know what, I'll go back for one last hurrah as we're on the way out. Because Harrison Ford and Indiana Jones may deserve better than the Dial of Destiny, but it seems like it meant a lot to Harrison Ford, who broke down in tears during the standing ovation from the movie. Even if that standing ovation was muted compared to other movies which had been shown, I think everyone would have wanted this movie to be the great send-off for Indiana Jones that it should have been. But this is 2023, and Hollywood is as it is. Only Hollywood could produce a title as big as this for $300 million and still have reviews this badly, while simultaneously striking because you demand more pay and changes to your workplace. Most people, if they want a pay rise, do better work first. They put in effort and then take that effort to the boss and go, look, I think that's worthy of an increase. Hollywood seems to do it the exact opposite way. They tank their industry, costing everyone hundreds of millions of dollars, and then go, by the way, I want to be employed for 13 weeks, have more writers by me, do less work, and get paid more money. Cheers. Hollywood is a business. It's supposed to make money. So it's so very strange that nobody in the industry seems to even realize that anymore. It doesn't seem like it's run for profit, and at the moment, considering the reviews for this, it doesn't seem like it's run for entertainment either. So hey, if there are only 3 Indiana Jones films before, it looks like after this one, there's still going to only be 3 Indiana Jones films. But those are just my thoughts. What are yours? Let me know down in the comments below. Are you going to see the Indiana Jones film or not? But for now, that's it from me. Press like if you like the video, subscribe for more videos like this in the future, and I will see you in the next one. Bye-bye.